Chaturvidha bhajante maam Janah Sukritinorjuna Arto Jignasurartharthi Jnani cha Bharatarshava. After explaining about those who have demonic character, who do not believe in the existence of supreme power, now the Lord is explaining about the rest of the kinds of human beings, okay? So those who do not exactly know what this supreme reality is, but somehow they have faith, then Bhagavan calls them as Sukritinaha, the virtuous. The virtuous cannot eliminate the God factor from their existence. So they cannot fall to that kind of viciousness which otherwise one can fall to, because the divine existence keeps reminding them of not falling to that extent. So now Bhagavan says there are 4 kinds of virtuous men who worship me. Chaturvidha bhajante mam. So what will be called as bhajan? We'll have to check upon that. We think that only singing a bhajan is to do bhajan. So we'll have to see what exactly the Bhagavad Gita's concept of bhajana is. Arto, jignasu, artharthi and jnani. Art, art, the one who is in grief or sorrow, out of distress, out of sorrow, we call God. That happens all over the world. People do that. Little bit of discomfort and what comes in our mouth is, oh my God, like that. So that is a call to God out of distress, out of trouble, some kind of grief. Jignasu, those who are inquisitive about what truth is, what is this reality, what is God, what do the scriptures say, what is so different in the scriptures that we don't get otherwise, what is that knowledge, etc. Then artharthi, of course, maximum number of human beings will be such who are looking for material gains for which they will worship. Artharthi, all kinds of, any kind of gain. It can be power, it can be position, it can be money, it can be some, property, it can be a child. For that people worship God. And we know in what ways people run after God for such achievements, such gains in life, some material achievements in life. Do I have to explain about this? All kinds of stones and all kinds of threads here and there, and some kind of beads, some kind of tilak they will do and what not. Some special kind of cloth we'll have to wear or go to a certain place. Every month you have to visit that temple to get the right benefit. Can be told. We can't deny. Yes, that's a kind of worship, and then there are methods of doing so also. We don't rule it out, but that's a kind of people, those who run after God for some kind of benefit. Okay? And then jnani. Then there are certain human beings, very less in number, we'll find, who not for any gain, not for any other purpose, but they know that there is a reality, that is that supreme power which is functioning behind the whole of creation, and therefore they are dedicated to the supreme. They are called as wise men. Jnani. Jnani is a wise man. So these are the 4 kinds of worshippers, Bhagavan says. O Bharatarshava, O best amongst the Bharatvansha. So one has to think about oneself. What sort of a devotee am I? Do I worship God when I am in trouble? Yes, I do worship God when I am in trouble. Children also worship at that time. Some examination. So they want a certain kind of result. Whether they study or not, but they want good marks. This is the trouble. And this trouble continues in our human life. It's not that as we grow older, we become more matured to understand the existence of the Supreme, to put sufficient effort, sincerity, regularity. All these are always missing in our life. In a way, we quite depend upon God for so many things. We think that we will put less effort but we will gain much. Even if I want to put up a business, half of it as though Bhagavan has to do everything for me. Only half of effort I will put myself. Why? Because this is my old habit. As a child also, I would study less but expect more. Just by blessings of God. This is called Artha worship. It's not a wise kind of dedicated worship of the Supreme. Jignasu. There is no dearth of scholars in this world, who will talk in length about philosophy or in length about scriptures or the mythology, you can say. There will be fat books. In an interesting way, they will represent whatever has been told by the saints and the seers. Not actually getting in depth about what they really mean, or sometimes even understanding in depth but not applying at all in life. If you remember Bhaja Govindam, Adi Shankaracharya ji is one of the greatest works, very useful work. In that, the first verse begins like this only. Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukring Karane, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. And he dares that scholar by calling him as Mudhamati. Oh, deluded one, you are a scholar, all right, but I don't see it appearing in your action. You are chanting, but your chant has got that ego behind it. When we chant Sanskrit mantras or shlokas and suttas and all, if I have not done sufficient sadhana, then again my ego only speaks out. I look down upon others due to my knowledge. So this can be a jignasu, not a jnani. A scholar could do so, but not a wise man. What makes him wise is his selflessness, his egolessness. So, therefore, a jignasu can be there who is also doing the bhajan of God only, but with lot of arrogance, pride. Then, of course, he will be performing homam, etc., some shodashopachar also, very meticulously, as per the scriptural injunction, all right, but then there is some discrepancy over there. What is expected out of that worship is not actually coming up in his life. The outcome of any worship should be what? Annihilation of ego. But if that is not happening, then of course I have a lot of scholarly knowledge, but it is just at the level of being a jignasu. I am inquisitive of knowledge. I like to roam around in the intellectual gymnasium which has been created by studying the Upanishad or the Bhagavad Geeta or so many other Puranas or other texts, but nothing has penetrated. Then Artharthi. Maximum number of human beings will be coming into this category, Artharthi. Little want immediately reminds us of God. Small things. Even for small things, I don't want to put my full effort and I want to again depend upon God. Bhagavan in one place says that Kshipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati. It is very easy to get success in this world of man. And in spite of that, I want to go to God for every small thing. This is called as being an artharthi. We'll talk about jnani later only, right? Because we were trying to apply it on ourselves. So maybe I fall into the first category or the second one or the third one, or maybe all the three, depending upon the situation. Sometimes I become an artharthi. Sometimes I want to show off my knowledge. Sometimes I'm really in trouble and I'm looking for some solution. Does that happen? It could happen through the day. Every day I could be going through all the three. I have to stabilize my faith by becoming a jnani. Now here, Bhagavan is not calling a realized soul as jnani. Even if one is putting effort with assurance to oneself of the existence of the Supreme Reality, he will be also called a wise man only. He need not have realized as yet. But at least he is on the right track. He understands the importance of truth in his life. He accepts the Supreme as the substratum. That is sufficient to call him as jnani. So, at least for you and me, we can apply this much to ourselves, that let us come out of the three other kinds of being a worshipper and try to come into this category, that we have unswerving faith in the Supreme, doubtless, in the changeless. On what basis can I have? See, therefore, bhajan is important. Do you know the meaning of bhojan? Yes. Bhojan we know, food, what we eat, the meals. Why do we eat the meals? Is it for taste or for sustenance? To some extent it is for sustenance, beyond which I go for taste, in fact. If it is yummy, then I want to stretch my sustenance by eating more, which actually shortens my sustenance. If I run after the taste, one more bite, that is really biting away my health. But yes, fine, one more bite is fine. So, at that time, my focus is on food. And it is always told, even by Shastras it is told, that the food should be rasya, snigdha, sthira, ridya, pleasing to oneself. Even the presentation should be such that it is so pleasing to eyes. One feels like eating. If it is colorless, brown kind of a broth, you don't feel like eating. No, the greens have to be green and the reds have to be red. And the yellows have to remain yellow even after being cooked properly. If it loses its color, it has lost its luster. And overcooked food anyway is tamasic. It's not good. So, to maintain that beauty of meals is so important, even told by the scriptures. But let us understand that I am eating for my physical sustenance as well as the same food. The essence of the food goes into my essential self. At present, being an egocentric one, my essential self as though is the subtle body. I have not gone beyond that to find my absolute essential self. But at least My mana buddhi chitta ahankar, the subtle body of mine. The four put together, the essence of food that I eat goes to that subtle body. And the gross body is also sustained by the same food, and the roughage is absolutely rejected by the body to that extent. So, every now and then through the day, intermittently, I will drink or eat something or lick or chew something. So it is a continuous process as almost. Okay. So it is almost a continuous process without such break. And now you have to replace this bhojana with bhajan. Now tell me, will you be able to do that? That is our actual sustenance. Knowledge sustains the creation. What knowledge sustains the creation? The knowledge of the scriptures, the testimony produced by the rishis, the seers, who have talked about the changeless factor behind the changing creation. The creation is changing, right? Who observes the change? One has to be changeless to observe the change. So who's that one who is observing the change? You and me. We all are. There is a changeless factor in each one of us about which the scriptures are talking. That knowledge sustains the changing creation. Why? Because the consciousness is that changeless substratum which is indirectly the cause of all the change that we perceive. Can the stone perceive the change? No. It has to be conscious. Consciousness pervades all, but everything is not conscious of it. So, the knowledge is available to the one who is conscious. So, the knowledge of the Supreme is also available to the one who is conscious about it. Though it is pervasive, though it is eternal, though it is always available, but it can be unavailable to me if I am not conscious of it. So, therefore, the actual sustenance is bhajan, not bhojan. So I have to, now I cannot replace bhojan with bhajan, but I can include bhajan with bhojan. Can I? Or not? Yes, I can. Therefore, our scriptures by the seers are telling us that offer all your bhojan as bhog to the Lord, and then accept it as His prasad, blessings. Then, whole day anyway we are eating as we decided, right? So, it will be a combination of bhojana and bhajan. One thing done. When we eat such food which has got the divine in it, inclusive of divine, then definitely the thought process that runs from this food, because the thought is sustained by the same food, the essence of the food is sustaining my thought. So the thought transforms into divine thought. Then that thought starts eliminating the undivine. because it supersedes the undivine. The divine supersedes the undivine. So the lower thoughts start dropping. So it slowly takes me closer to the divine. This whole process is possible if there is continuation of bhajan. Then the thought motivates man to act. So definitely the actions will change according to the thought. And the actions bring fruit, right? Fruit of action. So your prarabdham changes. The superior kind of fruits will bring better destiny, prarabdham. So what happens? It's a continuous process of self-evolution. This is the impact of bhajan in life. So dedicated activities as expected by a student of the Bhagavad Gita. Meditation and contemplation, followed by the right thought process. Followed by right intention, purity of intention. All put together is called as bhajan. Chaturvidha bhajante mam. Janaha sukritino Arjuna. O Arjuna, sukritinaha. This is called as those who are on the path of satkarma. Otherwise, it's a mixture of both, because we do entertain the lower thoughts as well. Sometimes I want to harm somebody. We are a little naughty. So sometimes we'll abuse somebody, sometimes we'll harm somebody, scold, shout, scream, cheat. This is all inherent in human nature. Why? Because we have a continuation of both kinds of flows. The lower as well as the higher is continuously going on. So one has to be very quick in selecting the higher one, because this lower one is too quick in getting us into action. So we just have to drop it. It's a very difficult task. Instead, suppose you have maximum number of higher thoughts only all the time. Then there will be less trouble, then there will be less mistakes, misdeeds. So you will be much better off. This is the impact of bhajan in life. But it should not become like this. Mukh mein Ram, bagal mein churi. Are churi also you didn't say, I only have to say. So the mind has to become non-violent. If my worship is not making me non-violent in my thought process, then my worship is just another conditioning. It's equal to any other activity. No better than that. So what will be our true worship? Bhajan. That I have to become thorough gentleman. Right? No malice in the heart. No negativity is entertained. No hatred towards anybody. Oh, I don't want to become that good. You will helplessly become that good. Why? Because essentially you are divine. So if not in this life, in some life you will. That is the what is that? Non-negotiable statement by the scriptures. Since every being is essentially divine, so helplessly that nature pushes you towards evolution, but it is extremely slow and tardy. The Darwin's theory of evolution, extremely slow and tardy, which actually goes at the physical level more than the subtle level. So the scriptures have told us that since you are essentially divine, so it is like 1,000, say, just an example, 1,000 power bulb covered with a thick layer of dust. So how much of luster, how much of light will it give? Illumination will be very dull. So it is not that there is no light in me, but that light is covered with this darkness of ignorance. So I am helplessly walking towards light. In between, I do some mischiefs. I can avoid that by doing constant bhajan, the way we discussed that kind of bhajan, with purity of intention. So that is a very important shloka in the Bhagavad Gita, this one, Chaturvidha bhajante ma, in the 4 categories of devotees. So we have sometimes objection on the 4 categories of human beings when Bhagavan says Chaturvaranyam maya srishtam. But we don't have any objection on this, then the 4 categories of devotees, Artha, Jignasu, Artharthi and Jnani. So we cannot be partially accepting the words of the Lord and partially not. So either you accept both or you reject both. Choice is yours. It will be unwise to reject basically due to my own ignorance. It is better to accept it at present, even if it is not acceptable fully because of my ignorance. At least let me not negate it. Okay, there can be 4 kinds of devotees, but are all the 4 equal? In Bhagavan's view, it should be equal only. No, Bhagavan loves everyone equally. We always claim that. When we see somebody else being more loved by the Guru or Bhagavan seemingly, so we start getting jealous. So we say, no, Bhagavan, loves everybody. Even if I don't do anything for Lord, the Lord always loves me. What Bhagavan has to tell about this, we have to understand. Everybody is very close to the Prime Minister. But does Prime Minister say so? It has to come from the horse's mouth, no? Others claiming it has no meaning. And then if Bhagavan will say that this one is more dear to me, he will also logically prove it as to why. He will give some rationale behind it also. He won't just say for the sake of saying. He is not going to be bribed by some who will become very dear to him. Suppose I want to bribe God to become the dearest one to him. So I will give whatever I have, and you can have a long list of things like some crores of rupees or some big piece of land or some gold ornaments or whatever it can be. You can think of any kind of wealth in the world or in the creation. But the worshipper will have to remember always that it was all given by him. So are we capable to give him anything? Nothing. Therefore, in our typical arti that we sing, what do we say towards the end? Tera tujhko arpan kya lage mera. But we sing it quite thoughtlessly and like a parrot, in a noisy way. Because people are, singing the arti at the highest pitch possible. Because everyone knows this arti. So everybody wants to sing. And some are too emotional at that time. So no words come out of their mouth. Because of the sorrow, some kind of sorrow, no? At that time, I don't want to sing anything. So even then my mind is totally blocked due to sorrow. Otherwise I am screaming over this arati. Have I ever sat down in contemplation and think about this? Tera tujhko arapan. Kya lage mera? What do I have which has not been given by you that I can offer anything to you, O Lord? This is the true bhajan, right? It's a beautiful thought sung in a very bad way so that it has lost its beauty. It's really beautiful. So here, what can I give to God? I have nothing of my own except for this ego. It's not a thing to be given. It's to be given up at the feet of Lord. It's not something that I can offer. So, in what way Bhagavan will say that this category of worshippers are dear to me? Let us see what makes us dear to God. Tesham jnani nityayuktah एक भक्तिर्विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनोत्यर्थम् अहं स च मम प्रियः तेषाम् of them ज्ञानी the wise Nitya yuktah eka bhaktihi vishishyate. Ever steadfast and devoted to the one excels. Out of the four kinds of worshippers, Bhagavan says, a jnani excels. Then what? Priyo hi jnaninaha atyartham aham. I am exceedingly dear to him, the wise, and he is dear to me. Sacha mama priyaha. So who is dear to God? Artha bhakta, jigyasu bhakta, artharthi bhakta, jnani bhakta is dear to God. That doesn't mean that these three are not. We can't make God as partial. He is impartial, all right. But then Bhagavan says there is a reason behind my loving him. Why this jnani is dear to me? Because I am exceedingly dear to him, therefore he is dear to me. So, for artharthi, material wealth is dearer than God. He went to God to ask not for God himself. He went to ask for some material wealth. So who's dearer to him? God or the material wealth? Material wealth. This Artha, the one in sorrow, went to God, not to ask for God. He went and he said, "Oh God, please remove my sorrow." He didn't say, "Oh God, please accept me." He said, "Remove my sorrow." Bhagavan said, "So be it, tathastu." He removed the sorrow. But then the devotee remained in ignorance. Jigyasu, he was taking pleasure out of God's stories and explanations about the changeless Supreme Brahman, etc. He wanted to earn out of it. He wanted a position out of it. He wanted some respect out of it. He wanted. So for him, his ego is dearer to him than God. For a jnani, he wants nothing. He has not gone out of sorrow. He knows God is the Supreme. Eka Bhakti. He has single-pointed, steadfast devotion to God. Here, it can be misconstrued, this shloka, very badly. If we don't give the reference to the context to this shloka by supporting it with other shlokas told by the Bhagavad Gita, then definitely this can be really twisted according to one's own whim. Eka Bhakti can mean, if I am a Shiva Bhakta, I have to worship Lord Shiva only. If I am a Devi Bhakta, I am not supposed to see any Devata, only Devi. And if I am Sri Krishna Bhakta, then nothing supersedes Sri Krishna is the supreme and none other, no other God is greater, or all the gods are lesser than Sri Krishna can be a thought. My Guru, my God, this, that, etc. It's very, very conditioning, and it is not at all told by Bhagavan here. Eka Bhakti is single pointedness of the devotee. In what way? That whether it is Sri Krishna or Sri Rama, whether it is Goddess Saraswati or Sri Ganesha, whichever form representative for that matter, from any other religion also. The moment the devotee sees an altar, he is reminded of that formless, changeless, eternal, all-pervasive, homogeneous reality which has no parts and divisions. That is called Eka Bhakti. For example, do you have electricity at home? Yes, I do have. I use it only for light, neither for fan, nor for geyser, nor for heater, nor for toaster, nor for any other equipment, nor for any other appliance. I only use it for light. Is that wise? When I use electricity for light, I have to accept all the other possible equipments or appliances that can be run by fixing it to the electricity. How can I deny? Okay, my need is for light now, or say heater, geyser, whatever. It can be a cooler, it can be an air conditioner, it can be whatever. But I cannot deny the other appliances or electrical goods that can be charged with that electricity. So, all through the usage of all the other appliances also, I must respect electricity which makes it run. That is Eka Bhakti. Right? So, whether I select any form of God or many forms at a time, but let me, while worshipping, also remember that one behind all the forms. That is Eka Bhakti. That is a wise man's vision of God. Vishishyate. He excels. What else? Nitya Yukta. He is well integrated. He is absolutely steadfast. Why? Because he is an integrated one. His mind and intellect are not contradicting each other. Therefore, his mind is absolutely peaceful and his interaction is very, very pleasant. His body cooperates with his subtle body. He is an integrated one. Nitya Yuktaha. Yoga Yuktaha. Because he is well united with the divine constantly, therefore he has an integrated personality. And therefore for him, Bhagavan says, I am exceedingly dear to him. If I love God exceedingly, then definitely it cannot be one-sided love. How long can it last if it is one-sided? So automatically God loves him. So the question over here is that who should love whom first? Should God love me first or should I love God first? We usually want the other way around. We want God first to love me. And if He shows that He's present and He loves me, if He gives me some experience of His presence, then I would like to love Him. This is the condition we human beings put. Sometimes the devotee will say, God, look here, I am depending on you, huh? If you are there, then this has to happen. If it doesn't happen, I will say that you are not there. Because we are very whimsical, human beings. This lack of knowledge has led us to calamity of all kinds. So this kind of worshipper is an emotional, what do I say? Crackpot. Whether I get anything or not, irrespective of whether I get the experience of God or not, why can't I love Him? Is it not sufficient that what I have got already? My existence is due to Him. My senses are functioning due to the consciousness. My ego exists because of its existence, the existence of consciousness. And then I want more experience. Is it not sufficient experience? My life itself is my experience of the Supreme. What more experience do I need of His presence? Every moment that I am breathing is my live experience of God. What more experience do we need? Now that things are going topsy-turvy is the outcome not of God's presence. It is the outcome of God's absence from my effort. When I take the doership on myself, then there will be things going topsy-turvy. When will I understand that? So one has to have that kind of faith. Why are we talking of faith so intensely in this chapter? Don't you forget, this is laying the foundation of devotion. Bhakti Yoga. 7th chapter is the first chapter laying foundation for our bhakti. That is the target. This kind of devotion is our target. Other kind of devotee we already are, which is not good enough. We have to be this kind of a devotee.